Whoa!
And we're back.
And what do you mean?
I mean, that gave me just enough time to pull up the the changelog slides.
So the changelog, and by the way, if you guys want to send, I mean, I love the question from the audience. If you have any questions, just write it down, um, and um, and the changelog. So let's show your screen. Yeah,
Yeah,
good,
go for it.
awesome. So what's well, how was doing the changelog this time, basically?
This was like I would call this a lot of dense changes. A lot of so I think one of the last ones was like a lot of bug fixes. This one's not a lot of fixes per se, but a lot of kind of like we're gearing up for something. It feels like a lot of a lot of fundamental stuff.
Yeah,
Being
yeah,
changed.
interesting. What from what basically kind of the stuff that Chris is working on, basically kind of saying this is the stuff that we actually need to fix before we I mean let's fix this stuff, right? And the kind of a lot of stuff that just say, you know what, this has been here embarrassing enough time to let's fix this and let's put this behind us. So those kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's because we have like there's a core initiative now from the maintainers to like figure out what are like core pieces. It manifests as bug fixes, but also kind of just as like we need to figure it out. Like you say,
Right.
like you're saying, like,
Right.
we need to let's
Right.
fully understand what we're doing here foundationally.
Right.
So yeah, no, it's definitely related to that where we've been kind of going through some of those.
Yep.
And yeah, definitely shout out to Chris who has I'll talk about his some fixes he put in here, but he's been at the forefront of pushing that and organizing that to make sure we're prioritizing important issues quickly.
Yep. Yep.
So, but let's not start with him. I usually do start with him, actually, in changelogs, as people
really?
probably noticed.
I didn't know that. I didn't know
it's
that.
because he usually makes breaking changes. He's one of the more breaking change guys. But instead, I'll start with Alad, who also he's the other one who also makes a lot of the breaking.
When Alad breaks something, it breaks everything. It's, yeah.
So this one's kind of like
yeah. A good example of something that breaks a lot of stuff.
It's just like he come in and then walk away. Yeah. Like.
I might have guys. I might have caused some issues for people. That's.
But just the easiest way to put it is that like if you notice when you create a new cloud bucket or new cloud topic or any resource at all, in Wing it'll include the namespace that it comes from.
Right.
In the automatically associated ID. So like if you don't use as and then a string,
right,
you get an automatic ID.
Right.
Now with this change, it just used the name of the resource, nothing with the namespace.
Yeah.
I
think there's a hint for us. Always avoid associating the name with something that can be refactored. Basically, I mean, it's even the class name can be refactored, and I believe that this is an issue. Mm-hmm. I believe that not for bucket, but for your own classes, I believe it's an issue. I want to change my class name, basically. So, but I think that's a hint for us.
No, yeah, I think the bad part about how namespaces were working is that it should be clear that we're not talking about like a fully qualified name of where it's defined.
Right.
Yeah, which is that that's like that's a refactor that
no one
doesn't it was confusing why it was even happening.
Right.
It was so I think we still want to include like a fully qualified name in the ID if possible. I think that was talked about in the issue, but you're right in that we need to be careful about what because we're doing this automatically.
Yeah.
It's we don't want to put people in a bad situation that they didn't decide for themselves to be in.
Right.
It's worth noting as like to get around this, you can like if you do new cloud.bucket and you don't want your things to be changed out from under you, it's a good idea to use an explicit ID whenever possible if you want to be be careful with that.
Right.
But and we're also there's some work happening to figure out like the long-term plan of how do we make sure that you don't like destructive changes like this don't kill you immediately and provide you no tools to be safe.
There is an issue for resource spinning, right? I mean, is that someone actively working on right now? You know,
I am. I wrote it.
Yeah, that's the thing you have to do. Now once you're done with the TypeScript, you're going to be back to resource spinning.
It's on the list. It's on the list of things.
So I think resource spinning is the mechanism to allow you to deal with those issues when it's changing. But I also think that we will have to spend more time with kind of the default ID versus kind of a bucket name. There's a lot of moving parts that we haven't figured out yet in this. But the resource spinning is important for any backward compatibility issues. Yeah, awesome.
For sure.
Great. Thank you a lot. Thank you for this feature.
And next up, that S is going to bother me. It's right here, but whatever. Yeah. So I combined a couple changes into one slide just because they're both kind of related, although not necessarily. But so overall, there's two big changes that happened from Chris during the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
One is that in-flight functions, like in-flight code, now runs in its own. They each get their own node process, entire process. And previously, we were kind of half sandboxing the code in a node VM. Which is there were like 7 issues related to this that weren't like necessarily, something that we're doing wrong. It's just like limitations of that using VMs for isolation like that. So yeah, I think we kind of always planned to get away from that, and now Chris finally we were able to get that done.
The VM bugs were nasty. I mean, I was comparing 2 similar arrays, empty arrays. Right? It says no, it's different. Forget about this because they're not coming from the same VM. They were nasty bugs. Now we have a different set of nasty bugs.
Is there like new ones?
So in some occasions we rely on the fact that we are running on the same runtime, right? I mean, the fact that my in-flight and your in-flight is using the same runtime. There was, I mean, the WebSocket. There was they had to share WebSocket, so it was done on a global variable. So so there's some occasions, and I don't think we have the right mechanism to prevent someone from making a mistake. But I think we always knew we have to move away from the VM for the node one. I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's also there's a lot of more power, like the concurrency stuff, and it's much more powerful.
Yeah, and quickly to talk about that, right now I think both Chris and Elad, or maybe just Chris, is actively working on like kind of that issue you're talking about, like basically figuring out this like problem, because it's not it was a problem before too. Like it wasn't like it's not a new problem, but like we're narrowing down the problems. Like now it's like, okay, the design of I believe this is also related to like service, like cloud service, like things that are like stateful functions. I mean, almost. It's not. I'm oversimplifying it, but it's being worked on. It's being. It's definitely. And it'll be another. I'm sure it'll be another huge thing to slap on this changelog as well.
Right.
Awesome. But having the separate processes unlocked. It wasn't technically a requirement, I don't think, for doing like implementing a way of doing modeling concurrency in these functions, but it sure makes a lot more sense to say that you have a pool of processes that you pull from to execute work. I think it's kind of like a really super normal and consistent with how most clouds probably work under the hood.
Right.
And now we can match that. Now we have that similar model of like we pull from a pool and we reuse processes.
That's actually super powerful. The fact that we're reusing this, because the reusing kind of cloud function is a capability. I mean, lambdas. Let's go all the way to AWS. Is a capability that is used when people are writing software lambda. You want to use the connection for your database. between invocation if the lambda is so you want to take this into account when you're actually writing the code. I think that's important. That's an important part of the simulation. Basically, we want Cloud Function to simulate the lambda function, Google Cloud Run function, and other fuzz. Awesome.
Yeah, I think I have some opinions on this concept that about like, because you don't like always get reuse. That's not like a guaranteed mechanism.
No.
So it's like in the simulator, it probably is more guaranteed than you would get in some other cloud environments. It's not 100%, but it's definitely,
because it's a pool here. So it's a pool, and we're not closing them down. That's what you're saying.
I mean, for many reasons, like they don't ever go to sleep. Although you could say that the simulator probably isn't very long running.
Right.
So like,
interesting.
It's different, and I don't know. I'm not. I won't go down the rabbit hole, but it's still. I think it's part of the conversations regarding the other thing I was talking about, like cloud service.
Interesting.
So
basically, awesome. So a shout out for the people who are using the simulator. If there's something that you want to replicate in a more fine-grained situation, maybe it's something that should be part of the console, part of the simulator. I want to basically kind of drain all of them. I don't know. Maybe there's some options here. I don't know. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where it goes. But I mean, the core thing here is, just to finish off the slide, is switching to full processes for in-flights was a huge bug fix on its own. And now we also model maximum concurrency in these as like part of the API surface area of functions, which can also be implemented in other clouds as well.
Right.
I don't think we have yet. Maybe we have.
I don't think we have max. Do we have max concurrency? I don't think we have max concurrency right now at all. Do we have it as a property?
Well, I'm using so concurrency.
Okay.
I think in the simulator implementation, I think is basically the.
Okay. Concurrency is max concurrency. Okay. Maybe.
And I think there might be a distinction, and maybe that's something else to talk about. Like, anyway, well, because there's like concurrency in AWS also has two meanings depending on what you mean. Like, there's reserved capacity or reserved concurrency, and then what's the other one? There's like a different word.
There's preserved concurrency, right? So I mean, this the one. I mean, I don't know. I think there's three options on Lambda. That's,
man, I thought that's more than I thought. Okay, well, so I think there's some nuance to it, but I think the one in the simulator is basically maximum concurrency.
One of them makes sure
it'll throw.
Yeah, it's crazy. One of
like your function, if you try to run too many functions at once, the simulator will throw an error.
Nice.
Based on your concurrency setting.
Interesting. One of the people that we were talking to, kind of from a POC design perspective, basically said that one of the problems that they released a new version and they didn't have maximum concurrency on one of the lambdas listening to the SQS, and there was a lot of events on the SQS queue, and basically there was a starvation for all the other lambdas because they didn't have max concurrency set up for that specific one. So that's something that we want to put in the policy as an example. You should have all your lambda function with max concurrency as an example. Awesome.
This goes well with like queues too, which have like batch sizes and also their own set of concurrency to like it's a whole set of other useful part of the primitives that we have.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you. All right, another big thing to talk about.
Yeah.
I think in the last changelog, I mentioned that Hassan also implemented platform parameters, which I should probably talk about after this, but I'm going to front load this conversation by saying platform parameters are like a way to define like, okay, the platform needs these arguments, like it needs these parameters, and with that it can change the behavior of how the platform works. Like maybe it'll instantiate resources differently or configure them differently based on these parameters. And a use case that came up was, well, how do we, like, if you make a library in Wing, how do you make sure that consumers of the library can have, like, how do you make use of these options? How do you define and then use these options in your library?
Yeah.
because platforms right now are loaded by the consumer. So how do you just tell them, hey, make sure you load this platform when you use it? Not quite a great experience. So this change allows you to make W platform.js files. I think you can also have a prefix as well, like a dot
Okay.
or whatever
Nice.
prefix.
Yeah. Yeah. You can.
And if these files exist in your project, they will be automatically loaded as like a platform for your project.
Yeah.
And this works with that use case I was just mentioning, where you can make a library and you can
Right.
have these files in that project. Possibly like saying like, okay, hey, make sure you have like this parameter, or this is optional, but you can have this parameter. Maybe you provide it. The
Right.
library now does something differently when compiled,
Right.
which is a pretty huge difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like it's a big deal. A
Yeah.
big shift in like platforms are becoming like we want to keep working on them. They're not just something that you don't just do -t and then TFAWS. There's a lot of world underneath like what a platform means, and I think
Right.
I'm really glad we're expanding on it.
Right. It's in many ways it's I think that the fact that you can compile this and kind of and customize your platform is what makes this project kind of I mean it's suitable for large organizations. And I'm seeing this right now when we're doing POCs with large organizations. They're using this capability they're actually using this capability heavily in order to customize Wing to work similar to how they right now provision software, and it's used more and more, and this thing also. What do you think about the fact that we have a W platform kind of default file that automatically gets read, and there's the A dot and it also gets read? What's your kind of Mark's opinion on this from a language design perspective and toolchain perspective?
I mean, I'm not huge on the W part. I kind of wish they would just call it platform.js. But
Okay.
I mean, holistically, I do expect these to be written in Wing eventually,
Okay.
and they would look much nicer in Wing. They would make kind of more sense. And I don't know. Other than that, I think they'll be written in Wing, and maybe it'll just be called platform.w.
Okay.
You know,
Nice.
I don't know. I don't. I'm kind of. I've loved where Hassan has taken this so far. I read like all the the direction we've gone down. So
Right.
it's in his capable hands.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
see.
I think that the fact that the event bridge Winglib already uses this and it works out of the box, I think that's great. I think it's I mean that's I'm always careful of all this hidden stuff that gets read if it's there and if it's not. But because I'm cautious to what is going on here. What's happening? But it this already get used, and the other side of it is being extremely verbose. So I'm looking at this with it's with a fresh eye for me. I was always against these kind of shenanigans. Awesome.
I think the one thing that saves it for me is that, and I won't speak for Hassan on this, but when I see Wing programs, I feel like there always are implicit, like there always is an implicit platform. Like there's always a platform of some kind. Like, and by default, it's just the sim. But
Right.
you could say that, like, you could basically say implicitly that there is a W platform file at the root of any project you compile that just says, yeah, just use the sim platform. That's basically your default. So like, so that's why, like, to me, the implicitness of this isn't really any crazier.
Interesting.
It's just like it's just kind of expanding this concept.
I
won't over-index on that because he didn't say that, but that's how I feel about it.
Interesting. I like it. I like this point of view. Awesome. Thanks, Hassan. And W stands for winning, not for wing, Mark.
Oh, okay. Cool. Next up, a more like regular good feature, not something like I think it's something that's come up as a bug several times. So really, really happy to see it. Like, and it's been confusing. And it's not just a bug, but it's been strange. So I believe we've had it so that the schedule, like, so for example, schedule takes a cron expression as a string.
Yeah.
And depending on where you deployed this to, it would have different behavior if you use certain notation. As I say here, like having all stars is valid in a normal cron expression, but in AWS it doesn't work.
What does it? It means every minute. No. What does it mean? All stars? Do you know?
Oh, I forget.
I don't. I used to be so good at crons when I was younger.
Cron things are like it's what's like it's one of those things I never actually remember. I just have to look up every single time I've done it.
Yeah.
And I've done it before. I've done it several times, and I've done like Linux, like on Linux systems I've done it, but like I never remember.
Yeah, I was a Linux sysadmin. I knew how to do this, but I knew what, and I don't remember it anymore. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, this didn't work in AWS, and this did work with a question mark in the last one, or a question mark in certain places.
Annoying.
Worked, but not anywhere else. So now, standardizing on like the more standard version, like the Unix style of cron expressions, and then doing some automatic work to do the conversion to make everything just work.
Awesome.
Works on my machine, works everywhere type of of improvement, which we love to see.
Thanks, Marcio, for doing
thank you so much, Marcio. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's that one.
Yep. Thank you, Marcio.
I'll put my face here. So right before this, you're telling me this doesn't work, which makes me sad.
It works for my taxi. It doesn't work for my Winglang. So we're gonna figure this out. It makes me sad as well.
Well, I will. So I'll get right on it after we get off of this. But it worked on my machine.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know what your problem is.
Yeah, exactly.
But debugging. So debugging is something that's kind of always kind of worked in Wing. If you knew the right sequence of buttons and knobs to push,
I didn't know that.
Kind of worked, but it was never like good. It required using extern usually to like because like you need to use the debugger.
Okay, the debugger. Yeah.
And yeah, it was just it was not good. And it broke actually. So in-flight debugging didn't even work recently with the change I mentioned before that Chris did with the processes. It didn't even work really. So
not even the debugger. Nothing worked. Yeah.
But so I put a fix in for the in-flight, and then I was like, you know what? Can we just make breakpoints work real quick?
It's crazy.
Turns out it was not hard to do. I mean,
because you already have kind of the what's it called? The dynamic symbols. What's the fact
source
that you
maps?
the source map, is that related or not?
Oh yeah. That's so source maps. There's like a lot of pieces I guess come together for this to work. But source maps are a core part of this,
right?
Because otherwise, because the thing that's running is the JavaScript.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but in VS Code or in most debuggers, like they have a workspace and they see like, okay, I'm running this code right now,
right?
And I see that it corresponds to like this code over here, so they can then and then it does the source mapping.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it works. You can set breakpoints in Wing.
Yeah.
What's that?
It works on your machine. Yeah.
It works on my machine.
Yeah.
I think it works for a lot too, right?
So
sounds like a you problem. I don't know, man.
Yeah. I'm gonna open a bug.
Okay.
And then it's gonna become a you problem again.
I'll be happy to look at it. But the core thing is that we're using JavaScript tools that already exist. Like that's kind of, if we had to design a debugger from scratch, we might have some problems. Might take us a little longer, but with this, you can already have access to debugging both pre-flight and in-flight. You can set breakpoints. You can step through. You can you can set watch. You can make a watch, and you can do all that kind of stuff that you're used to with debugging.
I haven't changed my demo. I haven't changed my demo for a long time. Today we took a cab to one of to a meeting, and I said, Uri and Ela told me about this feature. I said, I'm going to change my demo. I said, you're going to change your demo? I said, yeah, debugging in London. That's why we joined this company. I mean, that's the reason I can put a breakpoint on the queue. I mean, not on the queue yet, but on the lambda.
On the handlers, and I should say it's I don't know if it was clear too, but this is for the simulator. So like this
Right.
is only for learning like Wing Test or
Right.
Wing Compile or
Right.
anything that runs locally.
Yeah.
Cloud debugging is pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
I think it's technically possible. I mean, the under the hood debugging is just for JavaScript. It's running a server, a WebSocket server.
Yeah,
sending information.
I think we should emphasize all our effort to get you to a point where you don't need to do debugging in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And also, let's be practical. Until we get there, from time to time, we're gonna need to do debugging in the cloud. Figure out how to get to this point. So yeah. It would make sense. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. I love the features that are not written in any board. These are the. If it's not written in any board, someone said, "You know what? I think I could do this in 2 hours," and then 3 days later, said, "I've done this." I think this is the best features.
First time I've ever heard a product owner type person say that.
Yeah.
I love when people just work on shit that isn't on the plan. Technically, this isn't the plan. Actually, I'm being hard on it. This debugging as a feature has always been on our lists.
I mean, you understand that we want to get people to really enjoy writing software for the cloud. You understand this. Then you're in a pretty good position, as well as your as your company product person, to make the decision of whether this makes sense or not. That's the important part, and it's easy. Now it might shift. Now we have to do this thing. But right now, let's just focus on that. That's why I love this feature, and I'm gonna change my demo for it.
Awesome,
man.
All right, let's go on. I feel like we're doing bad on time. I have to look in the.
We
need the show over. Actually.
So we need to run. Let's.
Okay. Yeah. This will be a tough one to breeze over, but I'll probably going to talk about this a lot on the next Changelog. But especially because I think the syntax is going to change by then.
Really interesting.
There's already an RC talking about it, but so lifting is an automatic thing when you do bucket.put. If you did bucket.put on this, you would know. Okay, the compiler knows that you're trying to do put on a bucket.
Yeah.
But if you do something like this, our compiler right now doesn't have any sort of like data flow analysis. It doesn't know that B is that bucket.
Exactly.
We know that it's a bucket. That's not hard, but we don't know that it's that bucket.
Right.
We don't know that it's exactly this one.
Right.
So when you do B.put, we're like, I don't know what you just did. I know you did a put.
I don't know where to put permissions. There's no the put object. I don't know where to place it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I right now, like before the last change that you have made, this was an error. It's because we're like, hey, I can tell what you're trying to do. It's not going to work. Stop here. Don't even try to go further with this idea. But with this new, I'll call it a function. I guess it's it's technically a function. Looks like one. Where we say, you know what? Preemptively, I believe this has to be at the top of a function, a closure. I want to say, make sure that bucket has these permissions. And once you put a line like this, our compiler will no longer complain about like, oh, I'm not sure that we're gonna know what permissions bucket needs, because it'll trust you as the user. Yeah. Like, hey, I know that you won't be able to figure it out, so I'm just going to tell you beforehand, and it just relaxes and lets it happen.
Right. Similar to what we saw in the lift mechanism or the grant mechanism, actually. Okay.
Very much like that.
Yeah, lift and grant. Awesome.
Except that this isn't like, so there is no automatic like, oh, well, I guess I'll just give you every permission. That's we didn't go that route with this. This will,
interesting.
You'll have to give us something. You'll have to say something specific.
Nice.
Okay. I would like to talk more about this one, and I'll probably show a better example because this highly relates to the feature with externs. Because imagine, externs are not your code, so maybe what if you want to say that the extern uses a bucket and uses permissions? You see where I'm going with it. perhaps. So, but we'll talk about it more next time. But this is definitely a big. The issue number on this one was like 70 something.
76.
76. So you can tell it's been on our minds for a bit. But yeah, definitely we'll see this one again.
Yep.
Thank you, Yoav, for working so hard. He's been working on the lifting stuff for feels like 100 years now.
Or decades.
Yeah, for decades.
Yep.
And I'll move on to a lot of the other Alad's change.
Yep.
This is a small one, but it's like, oh yeah, this is super useful. We have a cloud.endpoint resource, and it really is just like a way of having this like data available about what about endpoints, about things that are exposed in some way, like URLs.
Right.
And in the Wing console now, you can, if you have anything that uses that, or if you use one yourself, if you make one yourself, it'll show up in its own little area, in the UI,
right,
to be able to click.
Right. I wouldn't say it's a small one. It's
It looks small. I mean, it's like it looks small. Sorry.
Very kind of. It's not quite often that we have a feature that in order to implement this, we need to also implement something in the back end that listens to the console and that does some basically connects the internet to your console. Well,
let's wait. Are you talking about, because Cloud Endpoint definitely is a big feature on its own, but Cloud Endpoint has that's already been
no, the exposure, the fact that you can expose Cloud Endpoint, basically you have a public URL. How can you have a public URL? We need something in the cloud.
I mean, this one
is
everyone can go to this URL.
No,
and you can hack me or your computer.
No, but you can, if you click on the I can show you. I can show you.
If you want. I mean, I was trying. We're over time.
We're over time. But you know what? I'll show this in the difference. I'll put this reminder. I'll show this example. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's that. I only have one left, actually.
Okay.
Last one. Another crazy big thing. I mean, it doesn't.
Oh, the UI button.
So Bring UI. So like that library, I believe it was Chris that created this. Like, it was kind of like an idea. Like, okay, can we model a user interface for these as like pre-flight and in-flight? And like, what does that look like? It didn't work in the console, which is a shame because that's where you see it.
Right.
But Christian and added this so that now when you use Bring UI and you use the UI features like button or field or section, I believe is one of the other ones that exists to like organize stuff.
Right.
This works in the console now. I forget if I talked about Bring UI on this before. No, probably not.
I don't think you did.
I mean, it's kind of crazy how even maybe looking at it, like it's like, oh shit, yeah, that just kind of works, doesn't it? Like, so a button, it's like, this is like the label for the button, and this is the code that runs when you click the button. And it's like, oh, brain exploding. How cool is that? How cool is that you can that's so like you can use like this .counter, which is it's like a pre-flight field in this class. You can interact with it, and then you can make a field. So this is the label for the field, and this is what this is like the updating function. Like so this gets pulled, and it shows you like a value that you return from here. So this is like this will automatically update and show you what's in the counter.
Right.
And that's why every time I click this button, then this will update.
Crazy. I've already used this as basically it's a super powerful mechanism. Yep.
Yeah. Really excited to like see this be used more, both with more components or
right.
But also like eventually when we use this for like a Wing console that's connected to your actual cloud accounts. Like it's almost like a self-service system. Like it becomes like it goes pretty crazy. Like how far this thought can go.
Right.
But for now it's already neat for the simulator use case.
Right.
So yeah, great. Thank you, Christian, for adding it to the console.
Right. Yeah, it's super awesome, and it's going to be super useful. super useful. Yeah.
That's it for the changelog.
Awesome. I think we're done. I want to show the expose feature. Do you mind if I show it?
Please, yeah, go for it.
Let's do this. I'm going to present my screen. I'm going to do this quickly. I'm going to present my entire screen, so we're going to see ourselves in a second. Oh, okay. This is the application, Get Hello. Okay.
Mhm.
This is the console, just as you can see. And now I have this. This is the.
Oh,
Now I can expose this, right? I mean, I can.
I didn't know that did that.
Okay. This is important. Listen.
That is very cool.
Yeah. Let me just 1 second. Okay. I know what happened. There's a bug here with the target right now. Let me run this again. Okay. Now I can go over here and I can expose this. Now if I open this, let's go in hello. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I totally I do remember now seeing this. That's
Yeah. So you can if I go back, this is a global. If I go back to my code and change this to Mark, what's going on, man? What is going on? This is not a small feature. And everyone that is watching us right now can basically go to the public URL. I haven't saved this, of course. And it's going to say, wow, what is going on? This is a public URL. So basically, we're giving the ability, kind of the ngrok capability to basically expose endpoint, any URL. Basically, anything that basically implements the URL. Let me stop the share. It's a crazy feature.
I'm really glad you showed that because I totally forgot that was part of it. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that.
So someone is showing this thing. Okay, nice, and thank you. Yeah, super nice. Mark, this was super awesome. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing both parts. It was fun talking to you.
Happy to be here.
And thanks. There's been a lot of viewers today, and thank you for staying with us. And man, I'll see you in 2 weeks at the 30th episode of the Winglang update.